Empire of Shadows. Part 1: The Last Heir. Rain drifted over Tokyo like falling glass. The sky was the color of gunmetal, streaked with the endless reflections of neon light. Below, the city pulsed, cars sliding through the wet streets, screens flashing, men and women moving through the drizzle with umbrellas like black wings. In a glass penthouse 30 stories above Shibuya, Leonardo Valente sat alone with a glass of Hibiki whiskey and the ghosts of his past. The rain's rhythm against the window was hypnotic. For Leonardo, the sound was never peaceful. It reminded him of the night his father died. A stormy evening in Madrid, thunder rolling like artillery as fire consumed the Valente estate. He still remembered the smell of burning mahogany and old wine. The world had called Don Angelo Valente a businessman, a philanthropist, a gentleman. But within the underworld he was something greater, a king. His empire stretched across Europe's shadows. Ports in Naples, casinos in Monaco, politicians in Brussels. And yet, like every empire, it fell betrayed from within, shattered by greed and blood. Leonardo, the youngest son, had fled. The police had hunted his family, rival cartels had picked apart what was left, and Europe had burned his name. He had come east to Japan, where anonymity was possible if you were rich enough and ruthless enough. 5 years later, Leonardo Valente had built a new empire. Smaller, quieter, but infinitely more dangerous. He dealt not in guns or drugs, but in information, data so powerful it could erase debts, start wars, or end them. The Valente Group, on paper, was a global cybersecurity firm. In reality, it was a digital mafia, a web of hackers, brokers, and mercenaries who traded in secrets. But tonight, all the secrets in the world couldn't silence the voice of his past. His phone buzzed once. A message. No sender. He frowned and opened it. Contained only a single line. The blood debt remains unpaid. Attached was a photo, the ruins of his family's estate in Madrid, lit up by a fresh fire. Someone had set it ablaze again. Leonardo froze. Then he saw the corner of the image. A playing card lying in the ashes. The king of spades. His hand tightened around the phone until it cracked. He whispered the name he hadn't spoken in years. El Sombra. The next morning, Leonardo stood at the window again, watching dawn rise over the Shibuya skyline. The city was awakening. Trains humming, businessmen rushing. 1,000 lives intersecting without ever touching. He had lived here long enough to love its order, its anonymity. Tokyo was a place where you could disappear, where past sins were swallowed by neon light. But ghosts travel fast. His right-hand man, Kaido Mori, entered silently. A former soldier, disciplined to the bone, Kaido had been with Leonardo since the beginning. "You received another message," Kaido said, placing a black envelope on the desk. "No fingerprints, no return address." Leonardo opened it. Inside, another card, the King of Spades burned at the edges, and beneath it, one line written in Italian. "Your father's debt will be repaid, in blood." Leonardo stared at it for a long time. Then he said quietly, "Book me a flight to Madrid, private, tonight." Kaido hesitated. "You've been gone too long, Leo. Europe isn't the same. The Cortez cartel runs Spain now. They're not just criminals, they're ghosts in suits." Leonardo smiled faintly. Then it's time one ghost met another. That evening, before departure, Leonardo walked through his Tokyo safehouse one last time. His security team bowed as he passed. His server rooms hummed like living creatures, feeding on secrets. In the operations room, his sister Sophia appeared on the main screen, dark-haired, sharp-eyed, sitting before a wall of monitors in Dubai. "You're making a mistake," she said. "Sombra's reach is longer than ever. Madrid is his city now. If you go back..." "If I don't," Leonardo interrupted, "he'll come here. I won't have Tokyo turned into another graveyard." Sophia sighed. "Then at least take backup." "I'll take Kaido. That's enough." "Enough for what?" "War." Leonardo leaned closer to the camera. His voice was cold, steady. "For closure. The return." The private jet landed in Madrid under a silver dawn. The air was different here, heavier, thicker with memory and decay. The city had changed in 5 years. Skyscrapers now rose where old markets had stood. The scent of espresso and car exhaust mixed with something darker. Money and fear. Leonardo stepped out, wearing a charcoal suit, his eyes hidden behind dark lenses. Kaito followed, scanning the crowd like a hawk. Waiting by a black Mercedes was Rafael Torres, a former Interpol officer turned smuggler. Balding, sharp, with a limp and a grin that never reached his eyes. Well, Rafael said, lighting a cigarette. If it isn't the ghost of Madrid. You shouldn't have come back, amigo. Leonardo smiled. Then it's a good thing I'm not here to stay. Rafael raised an eyebrow. What brings you back? Revenge or redemption? Neither, Leonardo said, stepping into the car. I came for truth. And truth, my friend, bleeds. As they drove through the narrow streets, Rafael filled him in. The Cortez cartel, once a rival, had evolved into something new under El Sombra. A faceless man who controlled half of Spain's underworld through politicians, tech firms, and old money. No one had seen his face in years. Some say he's dead, Rafael said. Leonardo smirked. Dead men don't send me cards. They passed the ruins of the Valente estate. The charred stones stood like bones. Crows circled above the wreckage. Leonardo got out, ignoring the drizzle. He walked through the rubble, the smell of ash, the crunch of old memories underfoot. He stopped at what had once been his father's office. Only the marble fireplace remained, cracked and blackened. On the mantel lay a gold crucifix, untouched by fire. Leonardo reached for it, and memories surged. His father's hand on his shoulder, his voice echoing. Remember this, Leo. Power means nothing without loyalty. But loyalty means nothing without blood. Thunder rumbled in the distance. Kaito's voice cut through the silence. Sir. Movement. 3 men emerged from the shadows of the ruined gate. Leather coats, pistols drawn. Leonardo didn't move. You took your time, he said. The leader sneered. Leonardo Valente. El Sombra sends his regards. The first gunshot split the air, not from them but from Leonardo. The fight was over in seconds. 2 men dropped. The third fled. Kaito caught him easily and dragged him back. Leonardo crouched beside the bleeding man. Tell me where he is. The assassin coughed blood. Cortez doesn't meet people. He watches. Always watching. Leonardo's eyes were calm. Then tell him this. He pressed the barrel to the man's temple. The Valente bloodline lives. The shot echoed through the rain. As the car pulled away, Rafael said quietly, You just started a war, my friend. Leonardo leaned back, eyes closed. No, Rafa. I just answered one. Part 2, Blood Ties. The old mansion outside Madrid hadn't changed in 30 years. The same cracked marble steps, the same iron gates eaten by rust, and the same dry wind whispering through the cypress trees. Leonardo Valente stood in the courtyard, staring at the fountain that no longer worked. The sun hung low, washing the world in gold and shadow. It was hard to believe this was where it all began. The empire his father built, the empire that crumbled in blood and betrayal. Inside, the air was thick with dust and ghosts. A single photograph hung above the grand staircase. Don Enrico Valente, his father, surrounded by the men who once swore loyalty to him. Leonardo traced the frame with his fingers. Every face in that photo was dead now. Some buried, some burned, some still walking around wearing new names. He poured himself a glass of whiskey from the bar, sat down on the leather sofa, and let the memories claw their way back. The night his father was killed. The gunfire. The smell of iron and smoke. The voice whispering run. That voice had belonged to Rafael Torres, his father's right hand. For years, Rafael had been like an uncle to him. He taught Leonardo how to shoot, how to lie, how to charm a room and destroy a man with silence. And yet, when the syndicate stormed their home, Rafael disappeared. No body, no proof, just silence. Now, decades later, whispers said Rafael was alive. Worse, he was one of them, The syndicate. Leonardo finished his drink and stood. If the past won't stay buried, he said quietly, then I'll dig it up myself. Madrid's night was a maze of neon and rain. Leonardo moved through it like a ghost, wearing a simple suit and a black coat. His companion, Ava Sinclair, walked beside him, an MI6 analyst turned mercenary. She had been tracking syndicate activity across Europe for months before Leonardo found her. "You're sure he's alive?" she asked, lighting a cigarette as they turned onto Calle de Itacha. Leonardo nodded. "Raphael doesn't die. He waits." Ava blew smoke into the air. "Then he's been waiting a long time." They entered a small cafe near the train station. The owner, a nervous man in his 60s, locked the doors behind them without a word. He led them through a back corridor into a private room where another man waited. A lean figure sat in the shadows, his face lit by a single candle. "Kaito Mori," Leonardo said with a faint smile. "You still working both sides?" Kaito returned the smile, though his eyes were sharp. "You still making enemies faster than friends?" They shook hands. Kaito slid a folder across the table. Inside were photos, ports, warehouses, digital logs, syndicate movements. Each file had one name in common: Torres, Raphael. "He runs their European branch," Kaito said. "Controls the ports from Marseille to Rotterdam. They say he's untouchable." Leonardo flipped through the papers in silence. Every detail, every face, every route. Then he closed the folder. Untouchable is a word men use before they die. The next night, the three of them met in a warehouse on the outskirts of the city. The rain had turned the ground to mud, and the wind carried the scent of oil and gunmetal. Ava set a map on the table. "Here's your window. Raphael's convoy leaves the villa every Friday night at 2300 hours. For SUVs, 12 men. They head to the docks for shipment inspection. You'll have less than 10 minutes to hit them before backup arrives." Kaito frowned. "This isn't a hit job, Leo. If we move too soon, we expose everything." Leonardo stared at the map, his expression unreadable. "This isn't about exposure. It's about closure." At 10:45 p.m., the convoy rolled out from the hills of Seville. For black vehicles, bulletproof, moving in perfect formation. Leonardo waited in the shadows of an underpass, his pulse steady. Kaito crouched beside the detonator. Ava's voice came through the comms. "All clear. 3 minutes to target." The first SUV passed. Then the second. When the third appeared, Leonardo raised his hand. "Now!" The explosion tore through the night. The second SUV flipped onto its side, flames devouring its frame. Screams and gunfire followed. Leonardo moved fast, firing 3 clean shots before the syndicate guards even realized what had happened. He reached the final vehicle. The door opened, and a man stepped out. Rafael Torres. Time stopped. The older man looked at Leonardo and smiled calm, almost proud. "You've grown," he said softly. Leonardo aimed the pistol at his head. "You betrayed my father." Rafael tilted his head. "I saved you." The words hit like a blade. "You think Enrico would have survived if I'd stayed? I warned him to leave. He refused. So I did what he couldn't. I built something stronger." "The syndicate," Leonardo said coldly. Rafael nodded. "The world changes, boy. Honor dies. Money doesn't." Leonardo's finger tightened on the trigger, but before he could shoot, another car roared into view. Syndicate reinforcements. Bullets shattered the air. Rafael stepped back, vanishing into the chaos. Kaito grabbed Leonardo's shoulder. "We have to go." Leonardo fired one last shot into the darkness, but Rafael was gone. Again, they escaped through the countryside, their car riddled with holes. The city lights faded behind them until only the hum of the engine and the pounding of the rain remained. Ava pressed a towel against Leonardo's bleeding arm. "You could have killed him." Leonardo didn't answer. His eyes were distant, locked somewhere in the storm. Kaito broke the silence. "You saw his face. That means he's real. That means we can end this." Leonardo finally spoke. "We won't end it. We'll inherit it." Ava frowned. "Inherit what?" The empire, Leonardo said quietly. The one my father started. The one Raphael corrupted. I'll take it back, piece by piece. He looked out at the black horizon, his reflection flickering in the window. The syndicate will fall, he said, his voice low and certain. But first I'll make them need me. The next few months unfolded like a storm. Leonardo's name resurfaced in whispers, Il Fantasma, the ghost. Anonymous accounts began striking syndicate networks across Europe. Their ships disappeared at sea, their crypto wallets drained. And with every hit, a single mark appeared. A black spade, painted or coded, always the same. The symbol of the Valente family reborn. Raphael watched from the shadows, his empire bleeding from within. For the first time in years, he felt something new. Fear. Eva found Leonardo one night on a rooftop in Barcelona, overlooking the city. The wind carried the smell of rain and smoke. "You're becoming the thing you wanted to destroy," she said. Leonardo didn't look at her. "You don't destroy an empire by fighting it. You destroy it by replacing it. Then what's left of you after that?" He turned, meeting her eyes. "What was ever left of me?" Far away, in a dark office in London, Marco Valente received an encrypted file. He opened it, and for the first time in years, he saw his brother's face. Leonardo looked straight into the camera. "The syndicate thinks they own Europe. They forgot who built it first. It's time to remind them." Marco exhaled slowly. Blood or not, he knew the war had begun. By dawn, the world's underbelly was shifting. The syndicate was losing control. Leonardo was everywhere and nowhere, an invisible hand turning power against itself. And somewhere, in the silence between vengeance and legacy, he began to wonder if this was destiny or damnation. Because when you take back an empire built on blood, you can never wash your hands clean. Part 3: The Syndicate War. The rain fell in thin, silver threads over Tokyo, soft enough to blur the skyline but heavy enough to drown the noise of the city. 6 months had passed since Leonardo Valente had disappeared from Europe, and in that time, the world had whispered his name as if it were both a myth and a warning. He lived now between screens and silence. In a hidden floor beneath the Shibuya district, Leonardo built something new, an empire that could not be touched. Kaido Mori stood beside him, his face washed in the glow of 20 monitors. The room looked like a storm of light and code. Dozens of operators worked in quiet focus, some in Tokyo, others connected remotely from Paris, Seoul, or Sao Paulo. "Your network is expanding," Kaido said, scanning the live feeds. "But expansion means exposure." Leonardo didn't look up. His voice was calm, controlled, as if he were discussing art, not crime. "Exposure is only dangerous to those who fear light. We are shadows, Kaido, and shadows grow deeper the brighter the world burns." He turned toward a massive digital map. Dozens of red dots pulsed across Europe. "Each one of these," he said, "is a syndicate asset. Ships, accounts, ports, everything they once used to choke our family's legacy." Kaido folded his arms. "And you're planning to take it all?" "Not take," Leonardo replied. "Reclaim." Across the sea, the fog-choked streets of London carried a different kind of storm. Marco Valente, Leonardo's estranged brother, sat in the back of a government car as it wound through Westminster. He looked tired, not from lack of sleep, but from the weight of secrets that refused to die. The MI6 handler beside him, a silver-haired man named Harrington, flipped through a dossier marked Valente Network. "Your brother's digital footprint resurfaced in Japan," Harrington said without looking up. "He's laundering through a shell company. We traced £5 million through crypto exchanges in Seoul and Singapore." Marco exhaled, staring out the window. "If you think he's building another cartel, you don't know Leo." Harrington smirked. "He's not just building one. He's reprogramming crime itself." Marco turned, his tone sharp. "He's not your enemy, isn't he?" Harrington closed the file. "You keep forgetting, Marco. Loyalty doesn't erase blood. You were supposed to bring him in, not protect him." Marco said nothing. He just watched the rain slide down the glass, thinking of the night their father died, thinking of the promise Leonardo made, to protect what was left of the family, no matter the cost. Meanwhile, in Madrid, the syndicate gathered. The meeting was held in an abandoned cathedral on the outskirts of the city, its walls blackened with age and candlelight. Around the massive wooden table sat 12 figures, the heads of criminal empires from across the globe. Yakuza bosses, Russian financiers, a Brazilian tech mogul, a woman from Dubai with diamond eyes, all silent, all waiting. At the far end of the hall, a speaker buzzed to life. The voice that filled the air was distorted, calm, mechanical. El Sombra speaks. A ripple of tension moved through the room. Leonardo Valente has resurfaced, the voice said. He is moving against our assets. He has taken down 3 accounts in Zurich, 2 ships in Tangier, and the Marseille port. He is building something bigger. One of the men leaned forward. Then we crush him. The voice paused. Not yet. I want his brother. There was confusion at the table. El Sombra, the woman from Dubai, said, Why his brother? He's weak. He works with the government. Because, the voice replied, weakness is leverage, and leverage is the only way to make a Valente kneel. Back in Tokyo, Leonardo received the encrypted message too late. The first explosion hit at dawn. Kaito barely had time to shout before the room filled with heat and smoke. The control center erupted. Sparks flying, monitors shattering, alarms screaming through the underground bunker. Move! Leonardo shouted, dragging a half-conscious technician toward the exit. Kaito slammed the emergency lock on the data core, saving what was left of the system before the fire swallowed the room. Outside, in the narrow alley behind the building, Leonardo saw the attackers. Masked men, professional, moving with military precision. Syndicate assassins. Gunfire lit up the rain. Leonardo ducked behind a car, firing back with his pistol. Kaito covered him from the opposite side, shouting in Japanese for civilians to get down. One of the assassins moved closer, too close, and Leonardo dropped him with a single shot to the throat. Blood mixed with rain as he pulled Kaito behind the wheel of an abandoned van. They found us, Kaito said, coughing smoke. Leonardo's jaw tightened. No. Someone gave us to them. By midnight, they were gone from Tokyo. Kaito arranged a private flight to Spain, while Sophia transmitted the remaining data to a safe cloud. Leonardo sat in silence through the entire flight, a bandage around his shoulder, his eyes cold and distant. In his mind, he replayed every move, every account, every communication, every person he trusted. One name kept surfacing, unspoken but heavy in his chest. Rafael Torres, his father's oldest ally, the man who built half their fortune, the same man who vanished when everything burned. Madrid greeted him with ghosts. The syndicate was already watching. News of his return spread faster than bullets. But Leonardo didn't come to hide. He came to send a message. Within a week, 3 syndicate warehouses in Barcelona were hit. A freighter carrying illegal arms mysteriously exploded in the Mediterranean. In London, a Russian money launderer was found dead. His throat slit, his body hanging from a bridge, and with every strike, a black spade was left behind. Painted on walls, carved into doors, embedded in code. The world began to whisper the name Il Fantasma, the ghost. Marco's world collapsed soon after. Harrington confronted him with a recording, a conversation between Marco and his brother from years ago. It was enough to destroy his career. You protected him, Harrington said. You lied to us. Marco didn't deny it. He's my brother. Then pray he spares you when he burns this world down. By nightfall, Marco was stripped of his position, his passport revoked, his accounts frozen. And still, in the quiet of his cell, he smiled. Because he knew Leonardo wasn't destroying the world, he was remaking it. 2 weeks later, a courier arrived. No return address. Inside a single USB drive. Marco plugged it in. A video began to play. Leonardo appeared, older, colder, but alive. Brother, he said. The time for hiding is over. The syndicate took everything from us. Now we take everything from them. Marco sat back, watching the message loop. Then he whispered, "Tell me where." When they met again, it was in Seville. The air was thick with heat and tension. The syndicate's mansion stood on a hill, its walls crawling with guards. Inside, El Sombra waited, the faceless master who had pulled every string. Leonardo moved through the villa like a phantom. Silenced guns, smoke grenades, shadows cutting through light. Marco flanked him from the west wing, wounded but determined. Room by room, the empire burned. When Leonardo finally reached the inner chamber, the man behind the mask turned, and Leonardo froze. "Raphael," he said quietly. The old friend smiled. "I told you, my boy. Power demands blood. Your father refused to pay the price." "And you did," Leonardo replied. Raphael raised his pistol. "I built this world from the ashes your family left behind. And now you'll die in it." The two men stood in silence, mentor and student, creator and destroyer. A gunshot cracked the air. For a heartbeat, neither moved. Then Raphael's body dropped, the mask tumbling beside him. Smoke drifted across the marble floor. Leonardo lowered his weapon, breathing hard. Behind him, Marco limped into the room. "It's over." Leonardo turned to face him. "No," he said softly. "It's only beginning." By dawn, the syndicate's villa was nothing but embers. And from those embers, a new empire rose. Invisible, borderless, unstoppable. The world's governments searched for a man they couldn't see, an empire they couldn't name. But in the digital dark, one mark kept appearing. A black spade, glowing faintly on screens from London to Tokyo. Leonardo Valente had vanished again. But this time, the shadows belonged to him. Part 4: The Fall of Shadows. The wind over Tokyo Bay was sharp and cold that night. It carried the scent of salt, rain, and something older, the kind of silence that comes after too much has been lost. Leonardo Valente stood at the edge of the glass balcony, watching the city's lights flicker like dying embers. The skyline stretched before him, endless towers, digital ghosts, and the pulse of a world that never slept. It had been a year since Seville, a year since the fire, since the night Rafael Torres died and the syndicate burned with him. A year since Leonardo became what his father once swore he would never be. The world below had changed. The syndicate's operations were gone, replaced by something quieter, more precise. A network that didn't rule through fear or violence, but through information, control, and silence. Kaito Mori stood behind him, his reflection faint in the glass. "It's done," he said softly. "The European accounts are closed. The last syndicate contracts were erased this morning." Leonardo nodded without turning. "And Marco?" "He's out," Kaito replied. "The agency reinstated him under a new name. He won't be coming back." Leonardo's jaw tightened. He never really left. Downstairs, Ava Sinclair sat alone at the bar, a half-empty glass of whiskey beside her. She watched the rain slide down the windows and thought about everything they'd lost, and everything they'd built in its place. When Leonardo joined her, she didn't look up. "So it's over," she said. He poured himself a drink. "Things like this are never over. You burned an empire to the ground." He smiled faintly, "and built another one in its ashes." She finally turned to face him. "Do you even know what you've become?" Leonardo studied the amber liquid in his glass. "A reflection," he said quietly, "of the world that made me." "You sound like him," she said. "Who?" "Your father." That drew a small laugh, tired but genuine. He believed power was a curse. Maybe he was right. Ava finished her drink and stood. "And what do you believe?" Leonardo's eyes drifted to the skyline again. "That someone has to hold the knife, or the knife holds everyone." She left without another word. Later that night, Marco Valente stood in the shadow of a small church in Florence. The rain there was softer, the air heavy with the smell of stone and candle wax. He lit a single candle and set it beneath a marble plaque that bore their family name. For a long time he said nothing. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, he said, "Rest now, Father." He did what he had to. Behind him, a man in a black coat approached. An old friend, a messenger. "Marco," the man said, handing him a small envelope. "He wanted you to have this." Marco opened it. Inside was a single playing card. The spade, black as ash. On the back, a note in Leonardo's handwriting. "We are what's left when history forgets the rest." Marco closed his eyes, folded the card, and slipped it into his jacket. In Tokyo, the rain turned heavier. Leonardo watched it from his office window, the sound of water filling the silence. The city stretched out like a circuit board, alive, pulsing, connected. He opened his laptop. On the screen, a digital map glowed faintly. The new network, his network, stretched across continents. Financial systems, trade routes, governments, everything connected, everything humming under his control. He could have smiled, but he didn't. Instead, he shut the laptop and walked to the balcony. The wind cut through his suit, but he didn't care. For the first time in years, he felt the weight of what he'd done. The choices, the deaths, the victories that no longer tasted like triumph. Behind him, Kaito's voice broke the silence. "The world's quieter now." Leonardo nodded. "Too quiet. You could disappear, you know," Kaito said. "Walk away. Let it all go." Leonardo's eyes followed the horizon, where the sea met the night. "Men like me don't disappear. We fade." Sometime before dawn, he drove to the outskirts of the city, to a small cemetery on a hill overlooking the bay. He found the grave easily, Don Enrico Valente, the old patriarch of the family. The stone was simple, elegant, untouched by time. Leonardo knelt, brushing a few fallen leaves from the inscription. "I finished it," he said quietly. "All of it. The debt, the blood, the lies. It's done." The rain answered for him, soft and endless. "I became everything you warned me not to," he went on. "And maybe that's why it worked." He pulled a small, worn photo from his pocket, a picture of the Valente brothers as children, standing beside their father. For a long time he stared at it. Then he set it down at the base of the stone. "I'll keep it safe this time," he whispered. When morning came, the city woke without him. The markets opened. The world turned. And somewhere in the shadows of that world, the last ghost of the Valente Empire faded into legend. In quiet corners of the internet, a familiar mark still appeared from time to time. A black spade, glowing faintly before vanishing into code. Some said it was a warning. Others said it was protection. But those who knew the story understood the truth. The empire hadn't died. It had simply learned to live in silence. And as the sun broke over Tokyo Bay, Leonardo Valente stood one last time at the edge of the water, watching the light rise over the city he'd conquered and lost. For the first time in years he smiled, not with pride, not with regret, but with understanding. Because he finally knew what his father meant. Power never ends. It only changes hands.